There's one more thing we have to talk about tonight on what is a pretty unbelievably busy news day. And that is the now intertwined story of the president's own legal trouble and the election drama from this week. The reason these are intertwined, right, is because, as you know, the morning after the election, President Trump fired the attorney general and installed a hand-picked replacement. Now, the means by which the president did that and what we know now about the person who he installed as the acting attorney general, both of those stories have led to stronger and stronger suspicions, stronger and stronger appearances that the president may have made this sudden post-election move out of self-preservation. So this hand-picked acting attorney general could interfere with or potentially shut down investigations that are threatening to the president. So we got Jeff Sessions fired 2 days ago, replaced with this new guy Trump picked for the job. Well, now all of a sudden we have all this new reporting on what kind of legal jeopardy the president might actually be in that might potentially have led him to make this sudden move. So this new guy at the Justice Department might be able to protect him from the jeopardy he finds himself in. On the front page of the Wall Street Journal right now, there is detailed new reporting about the president's direct personal involvement in the campaign finance felonies to which his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, pled guilty in August. This is a major news story from the Wall Street Journal. They found that, quote, Mr. Trump was involved in or briefed on nearly every step of the campaign finance felonies to which Cohen pled guilty. In addition to these published details, newly published details in the Wall Street Journal about Trump's direct involvement in those crimes, which of course are things that were hinted at in Michael Cohen's statements in court when he pled guilty to these felonies, when he said he'd been directed to commit these felonies by a candidate for federal office. In addition to that, the Wall Street Journal further reports tonight that, quote, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan has gathered evidence of Mr. Trump's participation in the transactions. So it's not just that this is in the paper. It's not just that Michael Cohen has alleged this in court. It's that prosecutors have all this information. Now, according to the story in the Wall Street Journal, had Michael Cohen not pled guilty in August, what he would have been hit with was an 80-page detailed indictment that would have spelled out not only his crimes, it would have spelled out granularly what President Trump's involvement was in these crimes. The only reason that indictment never saw the light of day is because Cohen instead pled guilty and then started cooperating with prosecutors as they continued to pursue elements of this case. Well, now we can add this from NBC News. Current and former law enforcement officials tell NBC News that when it comes to these campaign finance felonies to which Michael Cohen has already pled guilty, if it were not for Donald Trump being the president of the United States right now, current and former law enforcement officials tell NBC News that Donald Trump almost certainly would have been indicted himself in this matter. Now, as you know, there is very controversial Justice Department policy that arguably precludes the criminal indictment of any sitting president or vice president. Were it not for that Justice Department policy, these law enforcement sources are telling NBC News that the president would have already been criminally charged. Well, now we know from history that when prosecutors discover clear evidence of criminal behavior by a sitting president or a sitting vice president, when they believe that the evidence they have uncovered would warrant criminal charges, but they can't bring those criminal charges only because the president is president or the vice president is vice president. One of the other options that prosecutors have in terms of what to do with that evidence they've collected about a president's criminal behavior, one of the other things they can do is they can put that evidence together in a report, and they can convey that report to Congress. So Congress can consider whether or not that evidence of criminal behavior by the president or vice president should be used as the basis for impeachment proceedings. And that is what brings us back to the election this week. Because the Democrats did just clearly win control of the House. That means the Democratic-controlled Judiciary Committee would be there to accept such a report from federal prosecutors if prosecutors decided to convey information about the president's criminal behavior to Congress for potential impeachment investigations. That said, as soon as the president learned that the Democrats would take control of the House, he put someone new in charge of the Justice Department, who would now arguably be in a position to block any federal prosecutors, including Robert Mueller and the special counsel's office, from doing that. He presumably would be in the position to prevent prosecutors from collating the evidence they have gathered about the president's crimes so that that information could be conveyed to Congress. Now, it is hard to know whether Attorney General Jeff Sessions or Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, in the role he used to have overseeing the Mueller investigation, it's hard to know whether either of them would have blocked prosecutors from conveying information to Congress, or I guess conceivably to the public, about evidence of the president's crimes. But it seems pretty clear that Matt Whitaker, the president's hand-picked new guy at the Justice Department, he might have been installed specifically for that purpose, specifically to block prosecutors from doing anything with the evidence that they have collated about the president's crimes. Again, the Wall Street Journal reporting tonight that federal prosecutors have direct evidence of the president's personal involvement in federal campaign finance felonies to which one person, Michael Cohen, has already pled guilty. And so this Matthew Whitaker appointment right after the election ends up being very, very important, right? One of the things that quickly came to light about Matt Whitaker once the president announced that he would be installing him as the acting attorney general is that Whitaker has been extensively involved with a Florida-based company that got busted earlier this year as a gigantic fraud. It's a company called World Patent Marketing. Matt Whitaker was apparently on its advisory board. The company publicly bragged about him being on their board as a way to try to lure potential clients and reassure potential clients that the company was above board, almost in comical language. In December 2014, the company issued a press release that quoted Matt Whitaker as saying, quote, "As a former U.S. attorney, I would only align myself with a first-class organization." World Patent Marketing goes beyond making statements about doing business ethically and translates them into action. Federal Trade Commission filed a civil suit against this World Patent Marketing company, describing it as, quote, "an invention promotion scam that has bilked thousands of consumers out of millions of dollars." The company was shut down last year, and it then arrived at a settlement with the FTC to pay $26 million for having been caught as a fraudulent scheme. Now, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC paper trail about this scam company that Matt Whitaker was involved in, it's provided a number of interesting leads for enterprising reporters. The Guardian newspaper tonight, for example, published follow-up reporting on a number of veterans, including disabled veterans, who lost their life savings to the World Patent Marketing scam, right? What amounts to a nice story for Veterans Day. Whitaker's scam company appears to have specifically promoted itself to veterans and thereby targeted veterans for exploitation. And a number of veterans, including disabled veterans, are the named victims in the FTC's civil lawsuit against the company that resulted in the company being shut down and having to pay $26 million. Following up with the victims of this scam also led the Wall Street Journal to a second major scoop tonight. Check this out. This is almost unbelievable. Quote, "The Federal Bureau of Investigation is conducting a criminal investigation of a Florida company accused of scamming millions of dollars from customers during the period that Matthew Whitaker, acting U.S. Attorney General, served as a paid advisory board member. According to an email sent to an alleged victim last year by an FBI victim specialist, the investigation is being handled by the Miami office of the FBI and by the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. Quote, "A recording on a phone line set up by the Justice Department to help victims of the scam remains active." Quote, "The FTC's action against the company that resulted in the company shutting down was a civil proceeding. The existence of a continuing FBI investigation suggests that authorities are also looking into potential criminal charges." Think about this for a second. The guy has been installed by President Trump on President Trump's say-so alone to go run the entire Justice Department, which includes, of course, the FBI. The FBI is criminally investigating a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme that he appears to have been a big part of. Huh? It's all happening. The reporter who just broke this rather incredible story joins us next.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.